And then we are live. So, welcome back, everybody, to the Rcade Comics Podcast. I am your host, Craig Ray.
And I'm Shayne Pace.
And today we are joined by very, very special guests, Tony Fleecs and Trish Forstner of Feral and Stray Dogs fame. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Yeah.
Hello.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks. So, I guess so this actually came about from us. We ran into each other at C2E2. Well, I mean, not really ran into each other. We were at the Lunar event, and we kind of all discussed, so we talked about the podcast, talked about how we were fans, and we got this arranged pretty quickly, and we really do appreciate the quick turnaround on this. This is incredible. This is probably the fastest turnaround we've had as far as being able to reach out and be like...
Well, and I remember talking to Craig right after that with Tony, what you said on the stage, your support for the shops was it came through in spades, just
good.
right there.
Yeah, I mean...
I support local comic shops too, but I don't have a comic book that sells 100,000. So.
Well, I was really excited to be asked to speak at that Lunar thing. What the guys are talking about is that at C2E2 they have a retailer appreciation. It's like a mixer,
right?
Where they had drinks, and snacks, and stuff like that. And the day before, they had said, Image emailed me, and they were like, "Hey, Lunar wants to know if you'd speak at this Lunar thing. It's you and James Tynan." I was like, "What?"
That's awesome.
But I really do. I went to Comics Pro, and I'm very involved with the retailers that sell my books, and I try to basically make myself as available as possible because I would love to just be in this position that we're in right now, where Trish and I can just make creator-owned comics and sort of make a living on that,
right? Where
I don't have to really sing for my supper or run around trying to get gigs and stuff like that. We're in a very privileged position, and that all sort of comes from retailers going we can sell these books,
for sure.
We can do more than just sell, Spider-Man or Batman or what we could sell this cat book.
For sure.
Well, Stray Dogs just seemed to kind of blow up out of,
I
won't say nowhere. It didn't exist in a vacuum, but boy, that was a wild success.
It was pretty good.
So,
all right, moving on. That's it.
Well, no, I'd like to go back to that at some point. I know I want to talk about Feral first and foremost, but I think I told you at, the event, I truly was one of those crazy people that I went absolutely wild. I have every single cover of the Stray Dogs and Dog Days. So it's
Dog Days is saying something. Stray Dogs,
sure.
No small feat. But.
Yes. But Dog Days is 88 or something like that. And
yeah, Dog Days
is very
that's
impressive.
a catalog.
Yeah. So I've got a Stray Dogs short box that consists of 5 issues. It's hilarious. I love it. So with Feral, we just received, we had issue 2 2 weeks ago, I believe, and issue 3 is coming out in 2 weeks. And I noticed something right away, and it looks like this is an ongoing. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. That is awesome. So it was always the idea to have an ongoing? Is that kind of why you took the time between the Stray Dogs success and have you been working on this out where you already have a bunch of issues in the can or the idea for it and you plan on it being ongoing, or was it presented hey, we want this to be ongoing, or how did that work out?
Yeah, you're exactly right. We have been wrapping up Stray Dogs. Trish and I and Tone and Brad had sort of found a groove that we really liked.
Sure.
But we also we're working on a story that was tightly outlined and sort of always planned on being a closed loop, a finished piece.
Mm-hmm.
But we loved the thing we were making and we loved working together. And so we'd told Image before the book started coming out, hey, it's a long shot this thing will make money, but if it does, and if you guys are okay with it, we'd like to do a second Stray Dogs thing that's we just have these short stories about the dogs and feel there's the stuff we wanted to tell about them that didn't fit into the rapid fire pace of the story we were trying to tell. And that was Dog Days. But that also was, couldn't just go on forever. I guess we could have just dipped in and did every day of these poor dogs' life where they forget forget about the people that love them that got murdered. But so when that was wrapping up, we started talking about what would we do if we did something that was about cats.
Mm-hmm.
And what would that be, and how can we make it different and not just repeat ourselves?
Sure.
But sort of like stay in this, do a true follow-up, stay in the same sort of lane, but do something different. And so then that's how we started cooking up Feral.
And I don't mean this in an offensive way when I say this. There's a parallel there where in the shop, I don't know if you're familiar with the card game Lorcana, but typically it's a TCG. It's like Magic the Gathering. Most of the time, we would have a bunch of dudes in here playing that. And Lorcana is very equal. Guys will come in with their significant others, and it's like a game because of that Disney element and things like that, where there's like that interest there. I found that is very similar with Feral and the Stray Dogs, like the art style. It brings in all kinds from that alone. Like I have a hard time getting my wife to read a lot of books, and she totally consumes these because it's like, and was that by plan, or is that just how you, draw? Trish and, I guess both of you, if you could answer that, like, is that just what comes out naturally, or was that by design?
Well, my art style's naturally that way.
Yes.
But the way I think about it, visually, they were always intended to look like those gritty, vintage, dark, animated movies that we had as kids, but they weren't quite, devious enough.
Sure.
So that's where Tony came in.
Yeah, I definitely was trying to use that, like what Trish describes. Like there's that certain part of 80s and 90s animation that felt like it was too dark. Like when you're a kid watching it, you're like, can they do this?
Right. Yeah.
And so sort of push that all the way, take that to its furthest possible extent. But we do hear from a lot of people that it doing it that way does make it sort of like a gateway drug for comics, where people, you don't have to know anything about the Marvel universe. You don't have to know anything about, Dungeons and Dragons or sci-fi or
Sure.
All you have to know is
dogs are cute. You're right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Dogs are cute, and I feel sorry for these cats.
Exactly. Yep.
If I can jump in, I do want to say, speaking to an earlier point that Tony made, those 5 issues of Stray Dogs from a just a narrative standpoint were so tightly plotted, and what it revealed each one until 3, 4, and 5 kind of a rush. That was an impressive feat. So there's some of the effusive praise, and I'm going to go over to Trish. Trish, so I was reading a little bit about there's very little to find when I'm trying to look up your bio online, but what I get is that you are a fan or come from the school of like you just said, 80s and 90s Disney and Don Bluth, especially, which I was very happy to see.
Yeah.
I think Don Bluth, the praises don't get sung, and they certainly don't get sung loud enough. I remember watching An American Tail in the theater, and for the 3rd or 4th time, and still crying. And my mom's like, "We will not keep bringing you to this movie if you keep crying." But can I ask, what specific ones do you guys have in mind that were the bigger impacts and the bigger influences on you? Because I think of stuff like Black Cauldron, and then even Oliver and Company had darker moments in it. So yeah, from those times. I also like Rockadoodle, so I'm not.
Oh, Rockadoodle was great.
Rockadoodle was great, but
Sure.
Well, we say great.
Rockadoodle,
great looking.
it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun. Yeah.
Was that Eddie Campbell?
But I liked a lot of. Bluth films are my favorite thing. So, it's hidden, but behind me there's an animation cell of from The Secret of Nim.
Yeah.
The Secret of Nim, All Dogs Go to Heaven, The Land Before Time.
Gosh.
Get in that Amblin animation kind of.
Yeah, that connection, that Spielberg, that very 80s aesthetic type of storytelling. We all grew up. If you watch Land Before Time or All Dogs Go to Heaven, you became a grown up through.
For sure.
Well, and those stories were crazy. You see a dog get literally murdered.
Yeah.
He gets hit by a car and knocked into the harbor.
Life's rough.
There's huge allegories for heaven and hell in that story.
But there's. I'm sorry.
It's all it's so cute dogs, So we took that as kids, and we were like, oh, this is a great story. And then, of course, you get to the end, and then you start weeping like a child.
But that's absolutely baked into us, Stray Dogs and Feral, in the best possible way, where it's dogs are cute, but life's hard. There's darkness in the shadows. There's dark corners everywhere.
So
yeah,
go ahead.
That's what the the initial impulse was. That's sort of how I came to get Trish for the book too. Was just like I had the idea for Stray Dogs, and I thought like this is cool, but only if it looks exactly like this kind of thing. And when I saw Trish's artwork, I was like, it needs to look just like this. And so that's how it all sort of came together. But it was like that, all that stuff that you're responding to is what I responded to when we started working on it. It was just like, this could be cool if we could make it exactly like this.
Because I was going to ask that question too, if you just want to elaborate on that. Like, so is how you guys ended up meeting each other and working in that way professionally? Was that you had the idea and you just had a mutual respect for each other's work, and that's how it happened? Or like, I mean, was it at least like an online thing? Like you just saw like a profile and you're like, oh, those are cool pictures? Or I mean, at that point, like how did you make that connection business wise?
Trish and I both come from My Little Pony.
Sure.
I drew the My Little Pony comics for, I think, 8+ years. And Trish started out in like My Little Pony fandom, like cartoon fandom. And I met her through that, like at BronyCon, which is like the big one.
Sure.
In Baltimore.
Yep.
Was that the last one?
They had the last one. It was in 2019.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. But they still have them. We're doing one in Seattle here in like a month.
That's cool.
Yeah,
August, 2 months. Thank goodness. But she had done artwork for that convention, and I had seen her stuff a lot, and she'd done like drawings of like my characters and stuff. So like I was familiar with her artwork, but I didn't necessarily put a face to the name every time. And then she started working on the books. You could tell that. I mean, you're better at telling this story.
Oh yeah. Well, Sarah Richards saw my one of my pieces at BronyCon one year, and I had been sending my stuff into IDW just kind of on my own and not getting anywhere. And so she, I guess, sent an email off and put my work in front of somebody. And so I was doing, I started doing covers for them, like retailer incentive covers, I guess, for a while until I finally started doing some issues. But all of that was happening like while we were working on Stray Dogs. So like my first interiors are actually, I think my first published ones were My Little Pony interiors, even though I was working on them at the same time as Stray Dogs.
Sure.
So
wow.
But
yeah, we were putting that book together for a long time before it came out.
It was 2019, and you know, I was just like wide-eyed fan.
All right.
Sure. And I apologize also if we're rehashing this stuff that you probably rehashed a billion times and talk about the old book, but I just want to make sure that for our audience, you know, we get them well acquainted and give them, you know, some kind of, we try to do this for all the guests and things like that. So,
but yeah, it's all sort of like connected too, because Trish's first cover that she did for My Little Pony ended up being on one of my issues that I drew the insides for. So then I was able to put the name with the art style. Like I was like, oh, that she's the one that draws them like this. She's awesome. And then I like noticed her work. And then fast forward all the way to Feral. Now we use the artist Sarah Richard as like she comes in and does like assists,
like effects.
There's this cougar that shows up in Feral, and she always has like this magic with her. And Sarah paints this beautiful magic, like, you know, I don't know what even to call it, but we just send her pages and we go, can you put the magic on these panels? And she comes back.
Well, in animation, you would call that an effects artist. So
yeah,
sure.
Basically an effects artist.
That's cool.
Yeah. So this is all very much born out of the My Little Pony camp.
It really is. I liken it to how Scotty Young did
I Hate Fairyland.
The Wizard of Oz for all those
that's
years.
right. Yeah.
And then he sort of came out of that and was loaded to do I Hate Fairyland as sort of a similar thing with this.
That's cool. So
while I'm thinking about it, I just had a note. I had written this down, Trish, of all, I mean, in a sea of great covers, I think we've established there are about 500 or 600 variant covers between these two books. You're the Pharaoh #1 second printing, that was the Halloween variant with the paw. That is one of the greatest covers I've ever seen.
It is fantastic.
Like I already liked it, and then I was like, "It's a paw." I mean, it was great. I put that into so many people's hands, just like, buy this. I was going to like random people in parking lots, like, here, look at this cover.
I was so worried too. He was like, "How are we going to do this one?" And I'm like,
I got this. That's awesome.
Chris saw the
"We
vision.
just made the whole thing a paw."
Yeah.
It's like,
So worked with the ridges and the pumpkin. My gosh.
So, selfishly, I have to ask a question as well. With Feral, do you have plans eventually to do what you did at CGC with the submissions and sending in the pictures? Because that was one of the absolute coolest things that's ever happened to me was when you did the CGC thing, I sent a picture of my husky and I got back a stray dog's like the sketch and stuff. Is that something that you're planning on doing with Feral as well? Because I also have 3 cats. So
yeah, we're talking to them about it right now. We are going to do like an abridged version of what we did last time because we forgot to put a limit on how many drawings we would do.
Yeah.
And so we were drawing, we were doing like it started out we were doing dog days at the same time. And then it ended up being like way after dog days was finished. We were still drawing those sketches.
I got it back and it was absolutely beautiful. And I instantly felt so bad for you because I can only imagine how many you get pictures of these huskies. And you're like, they're all the same. They're all the same. It's like,
no, Trish draws every husky different.
Yeah, every husky's different. Yeah. I had a Malamute, so
that's awesome.
You have to kind of.
I had a Samoyed.
They have different masks and different features.
Sure.
They're all They're all good.
So that is awesome. That's actually great news. So I'm going to move back. I'm going to strictly move on to Feral at this point now. So opening issue is absolutely, it's gripping in the same way, that Stray Dogs was. And you're like, what is going on? And like, I feel like there's a few writers out there that can do that. Like, I think Tynan is one of those where you read the first issue and you're like, yep, I'm in. And Stray Dogs and Feral have that same thing. Like, how do you, I guess, for my way I wrap my head around it is when I'm writing something, is that like through revisioning and things like that, as far as when you're writing that, like, especially with an ongoing, how do you take the entirety of your story and then dilute it down to where I have to make this my, plot points and it has to end here to make sure that the people pick up number 2? Like, how do you personally approach that to make it to where it hits like that? Because it is very special in this book, and very few people can do that first issue type of thing where right off the bat you're like, yep, I'm in.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of it is, I call it cheating, but it's not really cheating. It's like, it's Trish and I doing something, but Trish draws the characters so lovable. And so like you empathize with them immediately just because
yes,
it's different than any other comic. Like if you read, like a Batman comic or a Miles Morales comic or whatever, like you see that character's face, it looks realistic, like a person. And so you see that as a person. When it's like understanding comics bullshit, but like when you draw something cartoonier, you're able to invest more of yourself into it, or more of like, that's like my dog, or that's like my kid, or what, so
I want to give you some credit there though too, because on the art in Local Man, he's very punchable. He's a very punchable face. So credit goes to you on that one.
Yeah, the opposite.
The opposite there. So,
but yeah, so we're starting with characters that people, and we sort of like even underestimate how much people are going to be like, oh, I hope nothing bad happens to these characters, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, literally already issue 1 was out and people are already walking up like, you better not.
They were like, I hope nothing bad happens to Patch, and I was like, well, I mean,
yeah,
that's sort of baked in.
Issue 2 already does the Game of Thrones thing where it's like, don't get attached to anybody.
Yeah.
But really, like for a first issue, it is all about like making your characters, putting them in the worst possible situation, and laying down enough sort of like questions, and also not holding back on anything at the same time. Like it is tricky to do, but the ones that I've done that I feel like were the most successful are the ones where I did not hold back, and so that like Feral number 1 and Stray Dogs number 1, like we just sort of really went for it and put as much into them as we could. And then also, you have that one for the longest time because, with Image, you have to have at least 3 issues done before you start putting it out. And so, we're working on issue 7 now, where issue 3 is about to come out. Although we've been working on issue 7 for a couple months, so I need to.
That's not my fault.
You need to stop taking interviews, right? Yeah. But I feel that Uncanny Valley has that as well. I just wanted to throw that in there. I mean, same thing, like the sense of danger, and like instantly, like I'm very, very excited for issue 2 to come out, because I was like, I honestly read that. I'm like, where the hell did all of this come from? It was like amazing and like manic. It was cool. Yeah.
Yeah, that's next week.
Yep.
And I just got the line art for all of issue 3, and it is really rad. So that book really excites me too.
Uncanny Valley is my new favorite book.
It is. It's a good book.
My new favorite book that I'm not involved in.
Can I ask about that? Like, where did that? Is it a level of like Tex Avery or Ubi Works or Mel Blanc, or just is there? Where's the idea born of? Well, that sounds like where do you get your ideas? But
No.
you see, where was the fertile
Where do
ground
ideas
that
come
came
from?
A lot of Stray Dogs and Feral and Uncanny Valley all sort of share a DNA, and that is, I love cartoons, but the way that I love them is sort of unique to me and my interests, you know. So, if I were to do things that involve cartoons, this is what they would be. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
So like where Uncanny Valley comes from is me growing up just a real cartoon kid. I have 4 younger siblings, and they're all. My next youngest sibling is 4 years younger than me, and my youngest is like 10 years younger than me. So they're much younger than me. And so all the while I was growing up, there was never a point, like even if I was the kind of person that like outgrew cartoons, there was never a time in my house where there were not cartoons. There was always kids. But also I always drew. And so I was always into cartoons and comic books and newspaper cartoons and animation. And growing up, I wanted to either be like a Disney animator or make comic books. And so, yeah.
Right.
And so, and also there wasn't easy access to cartoons like there are now. So it was almost like a treasure to get a hold of cartoons. They were on Saturday mornings. They were on maybe in the morning, sometimes in the afternoon. Like I couldn't just find cartoons whenever.
Right.
And when you saw one that you'd never seen before, like, oh, and here's a new one after the Merry Melodies thing had gone off. It's like, oh, I've not seen this one before.
Yeah.
So I was gonna ask though too. Well, early, like what Trish said about All Dogs Go to Heaven, like the dark edges of these works. You look at some of those old Looney Tunes, very much, and the Mickey Mouse ones, the Disney ones are very like there's a dark tint to it. But Trish, did you have also that it seems like with your the aesthetic and everything and your love of Don Bluth and Disney animation, did you want to be an animator as well? Is that what you thought your trajectory would be?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I didn't have a lot of family support on that though. Like, so they were like, you know, they don't call artists starving for a reason, you know.
Sure.
And so they steered me toward other
Practical.
You know.
Practical, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Do you rub it into them, Trish? Do you ever, when you go like the one time I went and just did this art thing?
you know, I just say, what do you think about that, Ma? You know,
Right.
What do you think about that?
It's got to feel good.
She loves it now. She loves it now.
Yeah.
She's like super supportive, like my number one fan now. But like back when, you know, the path would have been college, you know, or like animation school or like art school or something. Like those paths never came, you know, it was just high school and then into the working world, you know.
Yeah, sure.
So did you have any?
I always liked cartoons, though. I always wanted to do them. I always wanted to be involved in it. I always was drawing, like ever since I was a kid.
So is there any like formal training there then? I mean, beyond just okay. Awesome. That is, and that's
whatever happened in high school art class
is what happened.
That's what it was.
That's incredible. That's awesome.
Well, I also did so I did a lot of self, you know, kind of study with like I did that like online mentorship with Don Bluth with the character design kind of thing, learned how to do like a walk cycle, and you know, I learned how to do those things. I realized that I suck at them because I'd have no practice and no time to do those things. But I know the mechanics of it enough, you know.
Sure.
You convey movement beautifully, I think. At least with the animals, I mean, it looks incredible.
Oh, and you know, I learned the basics by watching a lot of how it's made type things, like the behind the scenes footage of like animated movies and stuff like that. A lot of documentaries, and how to draw books, stuff like that.
And that's a cool organic way of getting there and tearing that apart. Like I think that's a cooler success story than I went to school. I was trained in this. I mean, I personally think so. It's neat because it's just, for whatever reason, it feels like you got there because you were hungrier, like doing it, you know, self-made as far as that goes. I think that's impressive. So.
Oh my gosh. And I found, like when I was cleaning, I found some of my old drawings from back in the 90s. I look at them now and I'm like, aw,
Aw.
that was so cute.
How
So
about
cute.
and how about you, Tony? Like, how did you get? I mean, you said you were always drawing, but did you ever do anything as far as formally? Did you go off to school? And
Yeah, I went to art school. My family was sort of the opposite. They were almost too encouraging to like for us to follow our dreams to a certain extent. Me and my brother, I went to art school for animation, and then my brother went to school for vocal music, and it was just like, what? And but he didn't even want to be a teacher. So I was just like, this is so encouraging of you that you would let someone go to, like go to
Right.
full college for this and pay for this. You're just like, the only job he could get, I guess, would be like,
like if you work for 50 years, you might be able to pay back the tuition. Yeah.
give me
that
one of
type
the
thing.
3 tenors or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I went to art school at a school in Denver for animation, and then I got out of there and I worked as a graphic designer for 6 years before making my first comic and sort of starting in comics. Like I sort of came into comics through not self-publishing, but like small press publishing, and just sort of like generating my own stuff, and then pretty quickly after that, just like taking whatever gigs could come along, because I made my first comic, and then I was 26 years old or 25 years old, and I just quit my real job and just decided I was going to make comics full time. And so then I just had to make money. So I hustled real hard from, I guess, then until now.
That's
one thing we had in common, that hustle life. Although you're much more into no sleep than I am.
You still got that full-time job.
No,
So you're
I do.
hustling. You're hustling in a different way. Where you
that is what I've noticed about
Yeah,
even successful creators have to. It is a constant hustle in in this industry.
Oh, for sure. And it's all based on, like if I had stayed in South Dakota where I lived when I first started, I would be very comfortable right now. but I moved out to LA and I bought a house out here, and so it's just like, I have to hustle twice as hard as I would have had to if I would have, done things different.
is that was that like obviously it was a conscious decision, but like why LA? I mean, is that to be around everything that's going on? Like, is there advantages to that you feel as far as
a little
like,
bit? But I also just like it out here. Like I like, like any major city, like I like the
traffic?
well, no, when you're a freelance artist who works for himself, like I never encounter traffic like that. I never encounter like the fake people or all the stuff about LA that people hate. I just get like, I can go see an Italian horror marathon at the New Beverly, or every concert that I want to see comes through here.
Sure.
And, all the like pop cultural stuff that I like comes this way, and I dig that. And then also it's, except for how recently it started to rain for most of January, it's beautiful almost all the time here as well.
Yeah.
Can I ask real quick? What's your favorite Giallo film?
Oh, well, Suspiria is question like whether or not it counts.
It's totally fine. No, it's still acceptable. It's totally fine. Like it's
All
like
right,
saying
so
Jaws. You can say that. It's great.
Yeah, like Jaws is my favorite horror movie.
I think Deep Red's mine. I mean, and that's not much. That's a step down. So.
I love that one too. I really love Torso.
Oh my gosh, Torso was great.
Yeah,
great.
We're running out of American horror films to do homage covers, and so we're about to start leading into some Italian ones where I guess it'll be you and me that get excited.
Yeah, that I'll be excitedly explaining to everybody that comes in that this is Zombie 2, and let me tell you why that matters.
Was that
Zombie 2 is definitely on the list.
Absolutely.
It's so detailed that
is that frustrating?
There's so many people though who like come up to me with like the Stray Dogs Demons cover, and they'll be like, nobody understands what this is.
Because like it's such a niche audience for the horror buffs and like comic buffs. So like finding that cross in the Venn diagram, those are the fans, man.
Was that frustrating for you that a lot of the stores took store exclusive that pretty much like took so many of those ideas away from you on your B covers? Like that's got to be like some of that's got to be like, come on guys, give us some time.
We knew what we were getting into at the time.
We were running out too. Like on Dog Days, we stopped doing horror ones and started doing other ones.
Yeah.
Then we do like a Disney one. We did
I got the All Dogs and all that. Yep.
We did a couple of them.
But we
Hocus Pocus.
They ran through all the popular ones, and we did too. Like we did Scream right away, and we did The Thing right away, and like all the big ones.
Yeah, The Thing, that's one of my favorites in the reprint in the reprint line. The Thing
Yeah,
and Evil Dead.
I bought the Crow one was a standout for me. Like I bought so many of those to get one because I had to get like a 9/8 condition. Like I had to get it I was like, good Lord. But all so much black. It was so rough. Like
yeah.
finding one, like there's so much ink. I think it was still wet when I bought it. Like it was incredible.
And they all had like a little crease in them at first.
Yeah.
They had to do
I had like a roll.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
That's why I was so jazzed about that Halloween one. Yeah.
no, it's
Yeah, good.
and it's fantastic. Third printing, like I was really impressed. This is a kind of a side note, but I think in issue number 3, which I mean we'll be picking it up on Thursday, like Jenny Friesen did something like she did a cat and it was mind blowing. I'm like, I don't think I've seen her like not draw people.
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful cover.
I actually held the original pencils to that at C2E2.
Oh,
Somebody
she had
bought
there?
it.
Oh man.
Yeah.
I was at her
somebody bought
booth.
it.
Somebody bought it for a steal too. It seemed like a underpriced if you ask me.
Yeah. Oh, she had her original. She did a Zatanna cover that is coming out, and she had the original pencils there. And I was like too shaky to even like touch it.
Let
me just get away from here.
there was so much.
Beautiful.
They're so beautiful.
I didn't even have a chance to go over and take a look, but that is awesome. Cool. So
But yeah, Jenny's a friend, and we had talked to her about before issue 1 about doing one. And the earliest she could, she's so booked up that the earliest she could do anything was for issue 3. So as soon as she was available, we got a Jenny cover. Would have loved to have like a Stray Dogs one, but we didn't even start thinking about having other people do covers for us until this book. Stray Dogs was all like, will this be successful? Will we lose our asses on this?
sure. And have you
I'm a gambler.
Hey, like
has the process and like the amount of time it takes to put a book together, like I know you probably have become busier and doing more projects and things like that, so that kind of plays into it, but do you feel like as time have gone on, like you have more of an unspoken communication there where you can create those issues faster? Like do you feel more comfortable that you can make it ongoing because you have that cohesion going on between everybody in the team? That
Yeah, we're working pretty smoothly as a unit. Like right now, we are sort of like held up because I'm doing 5 other books at the same time. So I have to do thumbnails for the rest of issue 7 right now to get us up and moving again. But generally, when I'm not holding everyone up, we are moving much faster than we ever were before.
Issue 6 was like super efficient.
Yeah. Yeah,
That was the
so
fastest.
what is the breakdown between the entire team? Because I know there's Tony as well. Like it's hard to I mean everything's so similar and you guys can all kind of do the thing. Like generally and on issue per issue, like how does it break down? Like who is doing what specifically, I guess, like in terms of the actual art? Like are you doing any of the art on this or just strictly the writing and scripting and stuff like that, Tony?
I do thumbnails
Okay.
that never show. I mean, it's just sort of like the plan,
Yeah.
It never shows up. Like it's like storyboards, I guess.
Yeah.
And then I do inks and colors on the covers, and sort of like that type of stuff.
Okay.
But otherwise, it's all Tone and Trish.
Okay. So
Yeah, think about it like an animation process where you have a background artist and then you have the character artists. So Tone is on backgrounds, making the world look lush, and I'm in the foreground or wherever, making the characters break everyone's heart.
that's awesome.
And Brad ties it all together.
Yeah, and then Brad makes the environment warm or cool or whatever we need, and he does an amazing job painting everything to just look the way we need it to look. And then of course we have our effects.
The magic.
Sarah making the magic.
Yeah. That's awesome. So you're on 8, like, so do you have scripting and stuff? Like what point are you at with like, just as far as ideas go, like how far are you out already as far as, I mean, not the actual work, but I guess.
We have it outlined through, we got the second arc all outlined, and then the third arc is like, we know what it is, but we haven't like broken it down to outline it yet. So up through 15.
That's awesome.
But then we also know like, at certain points this happens, and at certain points, at the very end this happens. So like we know stuff like that, but it's a little more improvisational than Stray Dogs. Stray Dogs was very tightly plotted out before we even started drawing it, and this is like playing a little more fast and loose, where we just know the important stuff, and we're giving ourselves room to sort of like go on.
And
Plus, we can kind of like add things and subtract things. We pitch things back and forth a lot.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool. It feels a lot more collaborative in that respect, where we all kind of get to have a little say, or I get to throw my phone if the script is
sure.
game.
Yeah, issue 6 is one, like it was like an idea that I had at Christmas time, and I just texted Trish about it and was just like, what if we did this? And then by I think February we were working on it, like it was just sort of like we were just up and running, and so it is a lot more collaborative that way too. Also, like Trish will come up with character ideas or like ideas, plot stuff, and Tone, same deal. Like there's a part in issue 2 that was just Tone said like, what about this? And I was like, oh shit, that's great too. So it is sort of, it's way more collaborative.
That's cool.
And all of that sort of comes from already having made a book together.
Sure. And with these arcs, are you guys going to have like planned breaks in between? Are you planning, or like
just an issue for the trade to come out? So it'll be issue 5 comes out on my birthday in July,
mm-hmm.
and then the trade comes out in August, and then September is issue 6.
Wow.
So that's our plan so far. Maybe we'll see if we get caught up, and if we're fucked, then we'll
sure. Yeah.
take a couple. We're not going to take Saga style breaks, but we might.
Please don't.
Heartbreak. I couldn't take it.
It came back and it never hit the status that it was just from.
And then it took another break.
Yeah. So
anyway,
that's just how it goes.
Still love that book though.
Absolutely.
I love that book.
It didn't lose anything.
It was just as good when it came back, but a 5-year break's a 5-year break.
Yeah, that's right.
That's wild.
5 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was nuts.
That's a hiatus.
Absolutely.
So
can I ask some nerd questions or just one?
Please.
2. For Trish, do you have any? Are there any like particular like animation, Disney animation, like legends that like you like certain artists like Ivan Earl or Mary Blair or anybody like, or any of those old 9 guys, or was it just?
Oh my God, all of them.
Yeah,
you name them.
There was like an aesthetic that they established that was just kind of like.
Right.
It was like a house brand, but the brand was excellence.
My favorite is like watching like old pencil tests of like Shere Khan and like, Robin Hood, like the old, like you see the legends at work. And then you've got guys like Aaron Blaise and Glenn Keane who did a lot of good work. Their character design work and their acting and stuff like that.
Yeah. And they would toss it off like it was nothing.
They just do it. And John Pomeroy, and Don Bluth, that team was just like, my rock just for inspiration in just my early development days as far as drawing goes. I like to think my style, it used to lean way Disney, it used to lean way Warner Brothers or Amblin, it used to lean way Don Bluth, and now it's kind of like found a place on its own, where it's kind of like a little bit of, there's me in there. I like to think I found my own way.
No, for sure.
But it's all bits and bobs of inspiration from everybody.
Right. Okay, so just as a total nerd question, do you have what's your favorite Disney movie? Of the animation.
Oh, a favorite Disney movie? Lion King.
Okay.
All time.
Okay. I feel everybody has
1994 changed my entire life.
Everybody has as far as Disney animated movies, everybody, like a lot of people vacillate about what my favorite movie is, but Disney animation, like everybody has their favorite one.
Beauty and the Beast is mine.
Beauty and the Beast, mine's Robin Hood. Yeah, yours is Lion King.
Yeah, but I mean, like there's Renaissance, the Renaissance animation era of Disney is like my favorite era to muck around in, just because of the way that technology was developing at the time, and just the art styles were so beautiful. So
I can't believe I'm going to say this, but did you know that Little Mermaid, that was Katzenberg's first movie that when he came on to the Disney animation. That was Little Mermaid was the first time they had a completed script before they started animating. Isn't that like? Can you imagine the money you'd hemorrhage in a
Yeah.
Like, nah, just do
Well,
that
if I
over.
recall correctly, the movie that became The Emperor's New Groove was a completely
Oh
different movie.
Kingdom of the Sun. Kingdom of the Sun was that.
Kingdom of the Sun.
It was like an art film with like very little dialogue, all about the Mayan and Aztec culture, and then test audiences. For some reason, 8-year-olds didn't like that. McDonald's didn't like that idea. So
They couldn't merchandise a cartoon llama.
But I do like I like the film that we got. Anyway,
Yeah, that's one of the best DVDs too. Like has like the documentary on that
I remember it.
DVD is as good as the movie. Well, maybe not, but it's super fascinating.
What's your favorite, Tony?
Disney was taking chances at that time because that's also when they did Lost Empire, when it was a very long throw with Manola doing the concept drawing.
Yeah, Atlantis. My favorite probably is Little Mermaid. Little Mermaid for modern, and probably Sleeping Beauty for classic. I just love it sort of ties in with like the comic artists that I like too. Like I love a J. Scott Campbell. Anybody that can just draw like a really beautiful girl, graceful,
Right. Yeah.
That's when Walt brought in Ivan Earl to do concept drawings for that, and the other guys were. It was the first time he'd ever brought in outside help, and they're like, "Who is this guy?" And then we see this beautiful thing
That's awesome.
he came out with. I'm sorry.
You're gonna dig Uncanny Valley issue 2 on the very last page. I wrote in the script like do this like Ivan Earl, and Dave.
Awesome.
Afterwards, he emailed me. He was like, "I had no idea who that was, and now I just only want to do this."
Now I only want to do this.
That beautiful. Oh man, let me draw a castle. Like that's why we have that beautiful Maleficent and one of the best dragons ever in fiction is because of that. That's
awesome.
influence.
There's like a big monograph Ivan Earl that's like half paintings, half poetry. Do you have that thing?
Oh no, but sounds amazing.
Should get it before the internet finds out. I mean, it's expensive anyway, but it's not impossible to find right now.
The great Guillermo del Toro says that's one of the 2 greatest dragons in film, and it's like I totally agree.
What's the other one?
I think Dragon Slayer.
That's fair.
Which is very fair, very fair. The way it's shot, like awesome. Anyway, sorry.
No, that was great.
I had to take. I really wanted to pick Trish and Tony's brain on that one because it's like ever since the first Stray Dogs, I think I'm like, all right, I want to know what these people think of this.
No, I get it. Like I was all in. Like I'm trying really hard not to completely fan out on that. Like I've never. There's been a long time since I was like.
Yeah, don't hold back on our account.
Well,
Trish, because as soon as you came on, I see what's on your shelf in the background. I was like, you didn't. Those are not props. Like I still have my Lucky Bear. I mean,
yeah, my good luck bear.
Yes.
He's
yes.
Give me all the good luck.
It just made me happy.
But like these guys are from a Kickstarter. These ones on the bottom, the bigger ones.
Oh, okay.
That's a wolf that's green. He's a werewolf.
And those are original on the top.
Yeah.
Oh, we're talking Care Bears, folks.
We love Care Bears.
Care Bears.
We're talking Care Bears now. You tuned in.
That's awesome.
Okay,
There's ones just tuning in.
I did want to pivot if you have time, Tony, to talk about Local Man because in the same way it was actually Craig that got me to read this. And as soon as I started reading it and I saw what it was about and I saw what you were doing, I was hooked. This is the first time though, like, because all of us here are in our mid-20s, so we weren't alive in the 90s. But so we were all there. I was there for this, and what Local Man does is it establishes like Image has a
history,
a deep shared bench of characters that we all know and love, and I don't think I realized that until this book, where it's like, yes, Cassie Hack, Savage Dragon, Spawn, Boof.
It's like you live long enough to like you listen the music you grew up with is on the oldies stations, right?
They all exist in this one thing, and it's like it took a while before I put together what third gen. Like it was such a great idea, kind of one of those like you hit your forehead and you wonder why nobody had thought of it yet. And also Crossjack is just a great '90s name. I'm guessing you have a notebook filled with '90s names, which it could have been.
That is Seeley. I think Seeley invented that guy when he was in the '90s, like when he was a kid. And it was always Crossjack and always looked almost exactly like that. Like Seeley just has a real innate sort of like '90s image sensibility.
Well, every '90s.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. I was just gonna say every character that was made in the '90s in that image of time looked like something that a 10-year-old came up with, and I mean that in the best possible way.
Well, and the marketing on that book is fantastic too, because I remember going through and ordering. I'm like, what is all this glitz and glamour and foil for this like book? Like when it first came, I was like, what are these covers? I'm like, these are classic like Image, like Brigade, Youngblood, like crazy, like that. It was just incredible. Like it was like the nostalgia factor, like just from the covers alone, like just killed it. It was amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, we were hoping that we would be able to sort of capture some of that because it is a time, people that are my age and Tim's age grew up, if you grew up reading those comics, you're sort of like ready for something a little more mature and like a little more thoughtful. And so we're like, let's do that, but let's do it in a way that honors those things, because there is a version of this comic that's like, look how goofy this shit was, and my take has always been like, well, it's all goofy, like,
yeah,
Batman's goofy if you think about it, Superman's goofy, like X-Men, all of it is dumb if you break it all the way down.
Yes.
And so it's always just like the generation ahead of us that's a generation older than us is going like, your stuff is dumb. The same way like the initial reaction to like manga from people that read like the comics I read was just like, oh, there's all these kids in the comic store now, or like they're all
right
junking up the Barnes and Noble, so like the impulse is always like, our stuff was smart, your stuff is not smart. And so that was the take for us with Local, or for at least for me with Local Man, was just like, let's treat these as seriously as people who do like the prestige Batman treat Batman, or the prestige X-Men book treat X-Men. And when Image was founded, it's not this way anymore, but the initial idea was like, yes, all these, Spawn exists in the same world as Youngblood, exists in the same world as Wildcats and Savage Dragon. Like they all sort of keep to their own because they're made in their own studios, and they're not all having like summits where they talk about crossovers and stuff like that.
Right.
But, like the fun of those early days was like, yeah, Chapel shows up in Spawn, and Youngblood shows up in Wildcats, and like Savage Dragon would show up in all these books. And so we sort of just pretended like all the stuff that happened in the interim did not happen, and we still sort of like, we had characters that lived in this world where Savage Dragon and Spawn and Wildcats and Youngblood all exist. And so we just, that was our idea.
Awesome.
I disagree. I think the fun part of that era was being 10 years old and waiting for the books to actually come out on a regular schedule. That was killer. That was.
But you've got a spread in there that's got, I think it's got like members of Youngblood, and I can't even remember the main character from Love Everlasting, and Cassie Hackett, all in this wonderful spread. And it was like, that right there was like, this is something else. It's next level.
It's a love letter, and it's awesome. Like there's, you can tell that there's a lot of care taken.
So we actually did an episode of the podcast where we talked about the Local Man, because like, even if you take away the nostalgia, you take away the fact that these are Image characters, this story kind of works as its own story.
Standalone.
Yeah,
it's incredible.
Thank you.
Yeah, if you'd have pulled in Any Given Sunday and made up all the teams, the story still works.
Don't play that down. The episode we talked about it was best of 2023.
That's true. I was going to say that was one of your favorite. Yep.
So
sweet, thank you.
No, absolutely. It's definitely deserving. Like that. Like that was a surprising book, just like Do a Power Bomb was. I was like, what are these books making me feel these things that have no business doing so? And it was amazing. Like half of it's that surprise where you go in and you're like, Local Man, even solicitation wise in the covers, I was like, I didn't expect there to be that much depth. That there is, and it's a lot of fun. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like Do a Powerbomb, Daniel Ward Johnson, probably, he's not coming from the exact same place, but it is sort of a thing of like, we're trying to do something that's specific to us and do it in a way that is our, like, tell a story that's compelling and that's emotional and has real characters and stuff like that, but do it in a way that's unique and that only like Tim and I would want to do, which is not to say that like we're the only ones that love 1990s comics, but I think like you have to have like a specific take in the same way that Feral's a specific take or Uncanny Valley is a specific take, like our idea of what Local Man is sort of came out of like filtering all that stuff that we loved through our prism and saying like, okay, we really want to honor the idea of these books and really Image in general, and just say like, how cool is all this stuff, but also like, now watch us go,
Right.
And what's cool. And if anybody's listening, and you're not following Local Man, there are 2 trades out that will catch you up.
Yep.
To where they're at. Yeah. Also, I'm sorry.
Next issue comes out on the 22nd, so that's the third arc starts on the 22nd.
That's awesome.
This is a stacked month. Honestly, I'm pumped.
It is, and also I'll never have this opportunity again. But Tony, I the only thing I lament is that Gen 13 is not with Image anymore because
Dude.
I that is the one that I was waiting when I was a kid. That might as well have been Tolstoy to me.
Same.
The writing was so incredible, and I still love
it so much.
To this day, I love it.
I talk about it maybe every single day.
Gen 13. It's
J. Scott Campbell's.
J. Oh my gosh!
If you
Ryan
put a
Choi.
gun in my head and we're just like favorite artists, I would be like, oh, J. Scott Campbell.
Wow.
Yeah, that
Wow. And the Fairchild's character design. I mean,
Incredible.
when I growing up, I'm like, well, it's because I was 10. Now it's like, no, that's just a great design.
I
Here's
picked up that
something
Black
cool.
Cat cover you did specifically because it felt very much like you
Oh, yeah.
kind of channeling that J. Scott
sure.
Campbell vibe. It was awesome. Yeah.
Here's something cool if you love Gen 13 that I love telling people about, and it's they put out this oral history of Wildstorm called Wild Times that was like I don't know if it was crowdfunded or what, but it used to be like print on demand. I think it might still be you might still be able to buy it.
Okay.
But if you have the trade or the hardcover or whatever, Jim Lee did the layouts for issues 1 and 2 of Gen 13, and then J. Scott Campbell. Those were J. Scott Campbell's first full comics that he did. And then on 3, that's when he takes over and is on his own. And you can see somebody like learning at the foot of a master, but it still looks like Jim Lee layouts. Like you go like, oh, this looks like a Wildcats. This looks like a Jim Lee book. And then 3 is he's unleashed. It's the one that has Pit. So already you're like, this rules.
It rules.
It gets cartoonier. It gets looser. It's super cool to look at. So I would beseech you when you're done with tonight's recording, after you go order all your Trish Forstner and Tony Fleecs comics, pull out Gen 13 and look at issues 1 through 3 because it's really cool to see like that evolution over those 3 issues.
I've got all 13 copies of the first.
Amazing
for the first one. That's awesome.
Very jealous.
That is okay. Okay.
That's great.
So I write Army of Darkness right now too, and they did a
such a good comic, by the way.
Thank you.
Yeah, we can't even go to the Raimi stuff. Like, it'll be another hour. Anyway, sorry.
They did a cover for issue 2 where they just repurposed the J. Scott Campbell cover for their first Army of Darkness book, and that's it. Like I treasure it. I'm just like, this is the coolest thing ever. I delude myself into thinking I have a real J. Scott Campbell cover, even though it's somebody else's. It's Nick Bradshaw's J. Scott Campbell cover.
Close.
It's cool.
Man, that was awesome.
So, and I want to be respectful of your time. How are you doing on time? Like we generally, what we do is we ask, do we have time to finish? Like we do like a 5-question thing where we ask the same 5 questions to creators and things like that. They're pretty general.
Sure.
All right. So
Sure. Okay.
You okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So we'll ask the questions, and if you guys could both answer, and I think we could close it out at that point, and then we'll go through like all the different issues and things coming out and kind of like plug, like if you guys are going to make appearances and stuff like that as well. But starting with issue number 1 would be, what is the event, person, or whatever that kind of started your passion for the medium of comic books? Like what is that point in time that you were like, yep, this is it for me? Like comics are the shit. Like this is what I want to do. So I guess we can start with
answer is
Trish.
more interesting than mine, I'm sure. But so I always knew I wanted to do comics or illustration in some fashion. But as a cartoonist or as someone who draws cartoony, I didn't think that I could do it on like a big scale. So until I saw like Scotty Young's artwork on Marvel books,
Sure.
and I was just like, I could do it.
You're
I
like,
can do
yeah.
it now.
Oh.
I can do this now. He's like,
Like
if
Oz
he
and
can do it, I can do it because that's like super toony and like fun, So if he can do it, I can do it.
It's awesome.
So thanks, Scotty. You did it. Big ups.
That's awesome. Good answer. And then Tony.
Yeah, he's very inspirational. I'm always going like, what would he do? Like how could I make this successful like Scotty would make it successful? Mine is not as good. I think Trish's is better. Mine is just when I saw Jim Lee X-Men number 3. It was the first time where I had like bought comics before, and I treasured them and loved them, but I could only get them, sporadically, where I just happened to be someplace where there were comics, and I just happened to have $1, it wasn't very often that I get a hold of them. But when I saw that, it became like appointment television, where like I had to make sure I got back into this place and got the next one that came out and find all the ones before it. And so it was that one. It was Chris Claremont's last issue. I didn't know who that was.
Right.
All I knew was just like that the drawings inside of it were so crazy, and then also that it was number 3 after the other one was up to like near 300 at the time. I was just like, you mean they started all the way over? I could start right here and just start reading at number 3. So that one for sure was like, that's what made me like a lifelong fan of comics.
How monumental was that Jim Lee X-Men? It's amazing how many times that comes up. That Claremont X-Men changeover in that '92, that sweet.
And
spot.
I love you've been talking about him. So like Jim Lee's my guy. Like as far as like my very first con, which a con back then was like a hotel somewhere. Jim Lee's my very first signature. It was my X-Men #1. I had the Psylocke. Well, I say Psylocke. More people were on there, but that's why I bought it. The Psylocke cover of X-Men #1. He signed it in gold ink, and that is my biggest treasure. It is like the most valuable $1.50 book I own. It is like at that age, like Jim Lee like changed everything for me. Like I remember feeling the exact same way that you did as far as X-Men. I was the same way. I'm like Chris Claremont, I didn't understand how important that was when I was reading it, you know. And then Jim Lee kind of got me into the love of the outside.
I've got a Jim Lee treasure. I'll show it to you. Hey, buddy, my Baxter's having a dream. There you go. So I only met Jim Lee one time. I went to a thing with my studio mates, Dennis Culver and Chris Burnham, who just did Unstoppable Doom Patrol at DC like last year. But this was years ago, and we went to like a Kim Jung-gi demonstration that he did in downtown LA, where like we could watch him draw and sort of like go through his theory and talk about like, you know, how he comes up with, you know, layouts and compositions and stuff. Very like inspiring. But while we're there, Burnham had worked on a ton of DC stuff. He did Grant Morrison Batman, and so he like knew those guys. And Jim Lee was there with like a bunch of his guys from DC, and he was like, "Hey, we're going to lunch. You want to come with?" And I was like, inside my brain was just like, what?
Like, do I want to eat lunch with Jim Lee? Yeah.
And somehow I ended up sat right across from him, and I was working on ponies at the time. And so my buddy was like, "Tell him what you do." And I was like, "Oh, I draw the My Little Pony comics at IDW." And he was like, "Oh, I know those. Yeah, my kids watch that show." And he was like, "Those seem pretty easy." I was like, yeah, they're not super complicated designs. And then hold on, I'll show you. He drew one.
It's a farrier.
Is if this is a complicated pony, I'm going to lose it.
They did it.
There were some complicated ones. There were
I'm
some
sure.
hard ones.
No,
he started just sketching on a napkin, and he was trying to draw a pony. And then halfway through, he realized he didn't have it, and so he just drew boobs on it. And then he showed it to me, and I was like, I don't know. And then he wrote the pony saying, "Eat it, Tony." So my buddies grabbed this and saved it and gave it to me for my birthday.
That is incredible.
That is incredible. Yeah. Look at that gilt frame. That is fantastic.
They got that too. That's part of the gift.
That is fantastic.
Cool.
That is so cool.
I'll take that over a Jim Lee Magneto any day.
Absolutely.
Yeah, me too. It's got a good story with it. So anyway, that's it. That's question number one.
That is question number one. Question number two is favorite comic or books. Either one. You can choose a comic or book. Like, you want to say, Shane, what do you want to do? This time you want to do current or just all time? Or
all time.
Okay.
I want to know, like, what is that book for you? Comic or novel? Like, what is it? What is the one or two?
Drawn to Life.
Yeah.
That's
good.
Big Disney history book.
For sure.
Yeah. That boy. Yeah.
I got a thumb through a copy of that.
I liked it in the one that I had anyway. I don't know that. I mean, I know it got reprinted a bunch of times or whatever. But like in the bottom corner, there's like little flip book pages.
Yeah.
So like there's like little animations.
Yep.
Yeah. So I would just sit there forever and just flip. I would try to recreate it. Awesome. You know, to draw it in my own like flip books.
Did you ever pass time in class by making your own flip book? Because I that is something that I
bouncing ball. That's my favorite thing.
Yeah.
Make a war, like a battle scene. I would do that.
Yeah.
That's cool.
I think mine is probably Stray Bullets.
Oh my god, the David Lapham.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Like especially the first 2 or 3 arcs of it. Like the first 2 hardcovers.
Yeah.
Are some of my favorite comics of all time.
And seeing how they were interconnected and like what he was actually doing with that. People who get especially the Brubaker stuff now, which is so good. But I'm like, if you like that, read this Stray Bullets by Lapham is just incredible. Like the DNA is all there.
Yeah, I feel like the Image could be selling. Like if they just made Stray Bullets hardcovers the same size as the Reckless hardcovers, they could be selling.
Because right now there's that like the fat compendium that has all the Stray Bullet stuff, but that's not that doesn't lend itself to easy reading necessarily. But the stories are great.
So how does that work at Image? I'm sorry, that's an industry question. Like, so like Feral, once you get to that point, you get that 15 arc, and is it your responsibility to decide that you want that deluxe and you're like on the hook for it, or does Image ultimately decide that?
I got to talk to him about it. I'm not exactly sure how it's supposed to work. But I do feel like the people in book market and the people that work at Image are sort of watching for when it's a good time to do that. Mm-hmm. And also watching so that we're not cannibalizing our trade paperback.
Sure.
So like initially when we talked about Stray Dogs, we talked about doing a hardcover when we put out Feral. And then we talked about, like, as the Feral was coming together, I was like, oh, what about the Stray Dog hardcover? Should we do that now? Or, and then we just sort of it sort of got pushed aside. So I'm going to see all those guys at ALA next month. So I'll be inquiring about how exactly I'm supposed to, even though, we've made a ton of comics now, we're still sort of, figuring stuff out.
Sure. Yeah. I was just always curious because it feels like some of the creators, like, they'll come out with new hardcovers like that all the time on a regular, time frame, and then sometimes they get run once and then you never see them again. So I didn't know from the industry standpoint, like if that was ultimately up to you or Image or how that goes with the ownership and all that. So
we're definitely interested. I mean, you have a shop, so you sort of Stray Dogs is like an evergreen title for us. Like, it sells all the time. Yeah. And so we want to be real conscious of the value in that, and also not, like I said, not cannibalizing the trade. If we make a hardcover, is it something where it's like a one-off? Is it a special thing and then we go back to having trades, or is it something that becomes the format now? Right. So it's something we're still thinking about and discussing it. And Feral, obviously, we're going to trade first, and then that's something where I think hopefully we'll do more of like a Walking Dead model, where it's like, a couple trades make a hardcover, or
right.
Put it out in many different formats to just keep the different people get different formats.
Most of our folks that are into the collected editions will just buy all of them. So, I mean, like you have the trades because you want to keep up, and then when the deluxe comes out, you're like, yep, that looks pretty on a shelf, and it goes right next to them. So
yeah,
it's a sick addiction, this hobby.
It is.
This passion. Question number 3. Right now, what is on the wall of your workspace? What is it that you surround yourself with that
Trish is just gonna pan on over. That's awesome.
Oh, yeah, I can do that.
Float pan.
What? And I guess why? What is it that especially that? Those are original pieces.
Okay,
I got
there's
Stray
a lot of
Bullets over
stuff
there.
back there, right? But I also have around me some animation cells. Some things that I collected. I don't have like a prized, like, my prized animation cell is not hanging. She is kept away.
And that is
away from the light.
What is that?
It is an Oliver and Company animation cell, with the original production background and everything.
Which scene?
When they are meeting Georgette in her little room. Yes. It's her with her reflection in the window or in the mirror, and Dodger is behind her.
Oh,
that's cool.
They do so many interesting things with the animation, with the rotoscope, and with everything in that movie. That's really, there's the shot that I always remember is when Oliver, his first day in New York on his own, when he has to tuck himself into the Yankees cap when it's raining. I remember that, and I also remember that it's not a Mets cap because I'm not a Yankees fan. But that's awesome. That is amazing.
Yeah, those things. Because I mean, again, I like animation. I like things in 3 dimensions too. Mm-hmm. I mean, obviously, between plush toys and action figures and. I've got a mess back here. But
also, real quick, I'm sorry, because I have Trish Forstner here. I'm going to talk to her. But do you remember that scene in Oliver and Company where Bette Midler's she's doing the big musical number. She's walking down the stairs.
Yes.
Like, that is so impressive. That is such a hard thing to pull off, and it looks amazing.
I love that scene so much. But then again, I love the character animation there too. Yeah. Just because of just how insane it is. With the camera moving while she's coming down the steps.
It's so complicated, but it looks seamless. It looks like it's tossed off easy.
It's so good.
Yeah,
Such a good film.
Anyway, okay.
I mean, highly underrated too. I think.
A Billy Joel song, a great Billy Joel song, a great Huey Lewis song.
Yeah. Yep.
It was the
I did a
80s.
feral version of Dodger. Check my Instagram. I did a feral version of Dodger.
Of the okay.
It says you should worry on it.
That's awesome.
I'm gonna listen to that on the way home like 3 times. Anyway,
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
that was such a hard Billy Joel song to track down. By the way, in the age of digital streaming, it took forever for that to come.
Yeah.
Before Why Should I Worry? Yeah.
I think I had it on the CD from the Disney store, but
but it's something
I had
like
it on
that.
like those like audio tapes where they read the book.
Yeah.
Well, I had one of those when I was a kid. I had one of those, and it had like 3 songs from the movie on it. And it had that one, Streets of Gold, and Once Upon a Time in New York City.
That's the Huey Lewis one, right?
Yeah.
And then when they lift him up in the and he's playing the grand piano with his tail, and it's like, because it's Billy Joel. When you're older, you're like, this movie's great on 3 or 4 levels.
Yeah.
Anyway, okay, I'm sorry.
he said bebopulation.
And then because
Bebopulation.
because he's Billy Joel, man. He's a great songwriter. Yeah, it's great. All right. Okay. All right.
Hold on, I'm gonna show you mine.
Please do.
I'll show you what I bought. I bought this with Stray Dogs money.
Oh gosh,
yeah.
no! The thing that I'm insanely jealous over.
Here.
Balto.
Drew Struzan.
That's Balto.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Like
Drew
that.
Struzan? Drew Struzan?
Yeah, he didn't do the poster, but he was hired to do it, and he mocked it up, and then they went a different direction. But this is the original, the one that he did.
That is
That's incredible.
that's the greatest thing I've seen today. Also, wait, so Drew Struzan does something, and then somebody goes in a different direction?
They did that with one of the Hellboys. Too,
Hellboy 1, and then Guillermo posted everywhere. Like this is my version that I wanted.
Yeah,
and it was, it was better. I don't even know who they are.
Of course,
that's fantastic. Well, I don't know how to follow up Balto. I'm going to ask you. This is the one I was most interested in, and I have to follow up that. What is your favorite movie or movies? Or TV. I want like for you guys, like as creators, like what is the film or films that like you can name 1 or 2
that you watch to like draw from that well of inspiration or whatever.
This is it.
Kind
This
of
is the one
go
for
back
me.
to it. Yeah.
Oh gosh. Well, I mean, like I was always a huge fan of like TV shows, but,
or
like,
shows.
Nothing like deep or thought provoking.
No, it doesn't have to. Yeah, no.
You know, like anything that made me laugh was sitcom wise, like The Office and like things that I could put on in the background and not really concentrate on what's going on the screen.
But it gives a vibe and a mood that like
like a vibe. But then also there was like Gotham and like that TV series was really fun because I really wasn't like a Batman girly, and I watched that one and I was like, oh, look at Batman being a child.
I'm a total Batman girly. And I loved it.
Yeah, I mean, I like that show, and I met some of the characters from that show at or some of the actors at Baltimore Comic Con one year, and that was pretty fun. Castle, they did a graphic novel. Marvel did a graphic novel too to that show. Back when I guess Disney first acquired Marvel, so. Of course, I was getting in on all the crossover action there.
Yeah.
Had to read the books.
Oh yeah,
sure.
Oh, you were all in on Castle then.
Yeah, Castle.
All right.
And of course Firefly.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm a feeling
Firefly,
like I can't wait to see his Guy Gardner. It's gonna be
always. And then for movies, I guess The Lion King. I told you changed my life. So
that is awesome.
All-time favorite.
God, that was such a.
And the Chipmunk Adventure. All-time favorite.
No, that's awesome. Awesome.
Yep.
Is that on
Glenn Keane
Blu-ray?
had some uncredited work in there.
Who did?
Glenn Keane.
Really?
Had some uncredited work in there. I can pick out the scenes.
Gosh, talk about. I won't say some of it, but boy, talk about.
It's niche.
That's some prestige right there.
That's my cell I got hanging up on the wall. Hang on. If I can turn this thing without making a huge colossal mess.
Yeah.
Look at your whole desktop.
Alvin and the Chipmunks.
There's one there. There's one there.
Awesome.
And then there's that one there.
Oh, that's beautiful.
That's
so
the
cool.
whole thing with the painted background and everything.
Oh,
That's cool.
Yeah.
that's great.
My office is a huge ass wreck.
No,
so,
no one.
sorry.
No one. Tony.
I've had a long time to think about this now.
Okay.
Sorry, I had to turn into a huge dork and take up all the time.
No. I think I mean it's been since I was a teenager and saw or a 20-year-old and saw it, and it's always been my answer. But I think it's still Magnolia. I really like that movie, and I like the way what I find most inspiring about it is how it pushes real hard on emotion, and then it just does whatever the fuck, which I really
Yeah.
It is, no, it's a man. It's a guy in his 20s who can do what a genius in his 20s who can do what you just made Boogie Nights. You can do whatever you want, and he did whatever he wanted.
yeah.
I also love how it's the kinetic energy of the cutting in the first hour, and then it slows down and slows down, just like the John Bryan score slows down as it goes.
Yeah.
Also, there's a Patton Oswalt cameo in the very beginning, and any
of course.
movie is better for that. Sorry, it's one of my favorite movies, and you just said it so.
Patton Oswalt, big Ferrell fan.
Yeah,
Or at least
absolutely. Yeah,
Instagram.
his comics are
I
pretty good.
did it in passing.
He's that's awesome, and one of the best Tom Cruise roles ever that nobody talks about.
For sure.
Magnolia.
So there's an episode of Euphoria in season 1 that's like a Magnolia. I don't know if you saw it.
No, and I've missed all of Euphoria. It's on my list. There's a lot.
It's brutal. It's real hard to watch.
They do a Magnolia homage or something.
It's almost like they just did a whole episode where it's a lot of tension and it's a lot of different moving parts, and the score is almost exactly the same. It's that same dun 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 dun. It goes the whole time. Very tense. A lot of bicycle riding. I don't know. You should check it out.
I mean, did you follow Paul Thomas Anderson's stuff after that? Obviously,
of course,
Punch Drunk, and then There Will Be Blood. Obviously, the underrated.
Punch Drunk may be my second favorite of his.
Yeah.
And I love that it comes right after that too, because it's such.
He followed. So this might be apocryphal, but he apparently did that on a bet because after Magnolia and Boogie Nights, they're like, you couldn't make a 90-minute Sandler comedy, and he was like, yeah, I can, and he did, and it clocks in. If I'm not mistaken, the running time is 88 minutes of Punch Drunk.
That's
and
awesome.
It's beautiful. Anyway, all right,
That's true.
all right, last one. I'm sorry, guys. What is the most rewarding aspect in this, your journey as a creator, as a comics creator? What's been the moment that was like, man, that was it?
Oh, when people tell me that their kid, and even when I was at Free Comic Book Day, even now when it still happens, at Free Comic Book Day, a young girl came up with all of her stray dogs. They were all wrinkled and worn, and she was like, I love these books, and this got me into reading, and I'm just like, okay, thank you.
That's great.
Let me draw you 10 cats right now.
Right,
I don't
exactly.
know.
That is awesome.
It's so sweet.
That stuff is the best. Because there's pony kids who started out reading My Little Pony, and now they read Stray because they've, Pony was 10 years, so now they're old enough to read Stray Dogs and read Feral and stuff. So that stuff is really feels really nice. I think still maybe the most rewarding, it comes from Pony Times, because there's a huge sort of neurodivergent spectrum audience on My Little Pony, and one of the first times I did a signing or a convention, a girl came up with her brother, and he just came up and he had all the books and he was talking to me, and he he was getting them signed, and then afterwards we just chatted, and then his sister came up after, and she was tears in her eyes crying, and she said he doesn't talk at all, the only way we can communicate is that when he wants to talk about this stuff, I can talk to him about this stuff, and otherwise he's almost completely nonverbal. And so she was like, thank you for making this thing that gives us something that we can connect. That stuff very, very moving.
That is incredible. Yeah, and it is something that I do notice about the My Little Pony and the Brony communities, people that are neurodivergent or on the spectrum, that is an outlet for them, a comfort zone, and it's a beautiful thing, and then the whole vibe of the community is super welcome and super inclusive, and that's awesome. But that is fantastic
in that way, and I'm not trying to. I feel the same way. I'm sorry, from the shop aspect, I've got a similar type of thing as far as when you have somebody young and kind of when they come in and that's how they get into reading and stuff like that. I mean, I know it's completely different when it's your book. You created that, but on this side, that feeling. I mean, it's much the same here when an 8-year-old comes in. and maybe he'll be back here reading different books when he's 12 or 15 or 18 or, we've already seen some of that where like, I remember the day we opened the doors and it was like a kid that came in and he started his pull. Like he didn't do it yet. We told him about pull lists. He bugged his parents all weekend long, came back the next day that we were open during the week and started a pull for a book. And that was like the start of that journey. And it transports me right back to me being 8 years old, going into that shop and doing the same thing. So, I mean, again, not to like step on any toes. It's completely different. Like I can't imagine being the creators, but that feeling I imagine is kind of like, we're all in this, doing this and trying to do it for each other.
Trish
Well,
and I
I'm
were
trying to
at
put books in the hands of people. You know?
Trish and I were at Heroes Con, and a girl came up and dropped a My Little Pony comic in front of me. She was probably like 20 or 22 or something. And I was like, oh, this is not one of mine. And she goes, oh, no, I drew this one. I wanted you to sign it because I read yours when I was growing up. I was like,
that kicks ass. That's awesome.
And equal parts cool and horrifying.
Well, I also see like even like people who were in the fandom back, when you were, drawing so many of those books, they're drawing those books now. Yeah. And we're just like, wow. I A, feel old, and B, I'm super proud of you.
Right.
Like, yay.
That's awesome.
That's awesome.
So I think that's it with the canned questions as far as that goes. I would like to, like I said, try to be respectful of your time. Like if you want to give shout outs as far as dates, or if you have any upcoming, public appearances and things like that, and give you the opportunity to discuss those so people listening can try to seek out the appearances of the books.
When's this go on?
This will be out Monday.
Okay. Well, you will have just missed me at Things from Another World and City Walk. But this weekend, I'll be in Detroit at Motor City Con.
I'll be there.
Yeah.
Oh, awesome. Well, we'll come by and say hi.
I will.
And then after that, I'm going to be at ALA in San Diego, and then I'll be at San Diego Comic-Con in July in San Diego. And then Trish and I are going to be at Everfree Northwest, which is a pony show in August in Seattle.
I'll be in San Diego too.
Oh yeah.
And what is San Diego Comic Con?
What is this? What are you saying? What is that? I haven't heard of that one. What is that one? San Diego?
That's a solid lineup, though.
They do it every year.
Every year? Okay.
Yeah. Downtown.
Thought it would come up by now.
Convention Center.
I've been on the wait list for approximately, 6 years as a civilian before.
For what?
I'm sorry?
For what?
For San Diego. Back when I couldn't get tickets.
Can you get a tickets now as a retailer?
I have not looked into that yet. I'm saying back when I was because the shop's we're coming up on 3 years. So back when I was trying, it was a wait list situation and I couldn't do it. I was also into Funko at the time and it was completely heartbreaking. I'm like, 2 lotteries? Great.
Yeah.
Funko is bananas there. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother level. I wanted to do that when we were there in 2021 for Stray Dogs. I wanted to go to the Funko booth. You can't even get near there unless you win a lottery.
It is insane.
Oh, yeah,
wow, I didn't know that.
It's a whole thing for sure.
I wanted to go there so bad, and they didn't have anything I wanted. I looked, but I just wanted to go in.
It's like a whole town.
Yep.
Yeah, it looked like a whole little town.
Yeah.
So we've got. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
At the end of March, at the end of May, I'll be at Three Rivers Con in Pittsburgh. And then my next show will be San Diego Comic-Con in July. And then August, Everfree Northwest in Seattle.
Cool.
Okay.
And then Baltimore Comic-Con sometime.
Is Three Rivers Con cool? I'm sorry, I've heard of it. I've heard a lot about that show, and I've always wanted to... I've
never done it before, but the guys that run it are great.
Yeah, I would like to get to that at some point.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
I haven't been to Pittsburgh since I went to a furry con in 2016.
Oh, man. I caught a Pirates game a few years ago. That might count.
Cool.
The thing I noticed when I went to Pittsburgh, though, because they filmed the first 2 Nolan Batmans in Chicago, and it looks and feels like a Chicago film, and then they filmed all of the exteriors in Pittsburgh, and it feels like a Pittsburgh movie when you go there. That's what this movie felt like.
Yeah.
Anyway, a lot of bridges.
Yeah. And then issues a lot of bridges. Issues this month, we got Uncanny Valley this upcoming week, I believe, right? Number 2. The 15th. Week after that is Feral number 3.
and Local Man number 10,
Yep.
and Army of Darkness number.
And Army of Darkness, yes, which we didn't even get touch on, but a great book.
Thank you.
So
I have lots of covers coming out from Dynamite.
And lots of oh no, and your covers
All
are
the Disney covers.
Not just saying that. Yeah, we didn't even get to touch the Disney Dynamite stuff that you've been doing is great. Yeah.
Oh no,
which has to be a dream come
that's
true.
the sandbox that I always wanted to play in, and
yeah.
I'm glad I got to do it for like a little bit, and got to work on some cool things.
And they're awesome.
Absolutely.
They really are.
Get Feral number 3.
Okay.
Feral for sure. We
Yeah,
really
Feral
do
really-
apologize for taking up so much of your time. I know you've been very,
This is
very
great.
generous. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no, but yeah, Feral number 3 comes out. Feral really starts to pick up. I mean, it sort of moves fast from the beginning. But
It hasn't picked up yet. I was like,
4, 5, and 6. I love all of those. 3 is really good too. Like every issue, we sort of introduce new characters and introduce new, like locations and situations, and we're really having fun on this book. So I'm excited for people to get 3. And then also, if you've been sending in cat pictures, I think your cats start to show up in the back of 3 because the first 2
Fantastic.
came out. So
And then also Feral number 1 third printing
third printing.
that's
will
true.
be out
Yep.
as well. And I think Stray Dogs number 1 image firsts sometime next month, right?
Yep.
The homage covers aren't even going to be horror at a certain point. You can have it like an Eat, Pray, Love Stray Dog
Pray,
or a
Love
Feral
Stray
cover or something like
They'll
that.
just do all my other favorite movies, just like the Family Stone Feral cover and the
Mona Lisa smile. I mean, yeah, we're just
No, I love it. I'm
all
psyched.
right. So,
'Cause even
all right.
that last page sticks out with all we got to do is find a human, a person, and we'll be fine.
yeah.
it's gonna be great.
Those cliffhangers.
So takeaways: everybody go see All Dogs Go to Heaven, Oliver and Company, Magnolia, and then read Gen 13.
And
That's all we
Feral
need
number
you to
3.
do.
That's it. And then all the Trish Forstner, Tony Fleecs books that we're doing.
Yeah, if you
Absolutely.
see our names, we really stand behind these books. You can be confident buying them.
And we do too, and we really do appreciate it. Like, this is honestly, I've been incredibly awkward when I'm usually not. I am a huge fan, and it's been kind of like very, very humbling to be able to have a shop, sell the product, speak with you. Like, it's been an incredible experience, and I really, really appreciate your time. So
Yeah, thanks for having us.
we will be in touch. Hopefully we can speak again sometime soon. Thank you very
Yeah.
much.
Sounds great.
Thank you.
Have a good one.
All right, guys, we'll talk to you later on.
See you.